again, it gets weird. Hello, I don't know if you can hear me. There seems to be a little bit delay with the video. Why that would be, I don't know. So anybody that's watching, if you can hear me, let me know. Let's see if we can get this screen off and get the other one up. It's very interesting that it doesn't have. Oh, so Ramona says she can hear me. Dean hears me. Okay, so people are hearing me. That's good. I know the video seems a little off, right? It seems a little like it's slow, which is kind of interesting. It doesn't do that when I record normally, but this is the first time doing it through YouTube. So, it's a little, this is a new territory for me also. So I see a lot of my students are here, and some people that aren't my students are here watching. I appreciate it. Before we go on, I just want to say thanks to everyone that's been follower of the channel and follower of the podcast. I appreciate you all. When I started this, almost 2 years ago now, if you had told me I'd be doing 100 podcasts, I would have told you you were crazy. So I appreciate all you sticking with me. I know when I watch, every once in a while, I pop on one of the early ones, but I get a little irked with myself watching the early ones, and I'm trying to get better and trying not to say and too much. But again, as usual, it's a work in progress. So anybody that's here that's actually watching, if you have any questions, any subjects you'd like me to touch on, I'll be happy to answer your questions. Nothing's off the table. You can ask anything you want. Like I said, there's some people watching that have whatchamacallit. So I see a lot of people have popped on here. So that's good to see. I will mention one thing weeks that I find kind of funny with senior martial arts teachers is some of us seem to think that because we're high level in martial arts or very knowledgeable in martial arts, that that makes us knowledgeable in everything, and that people want to hear our opinion about everything, or that we should give advice on everything. And I think some senior guys need to take a little bit of a step back. I've seen some postings on YouTube by some senior martial arts guys in terms of politics and in terms of other things, and it just makes me shake my head. Okay, again, you might be an outstanding martial artist, but most people really don't care about your opinion on politics. I stopped doing political posts a long time ago because I came to the realization no one cared what I thought about politics. I'm knowledgeable in certain areas. Those are the lanes I try to stay in. I try not to go out of my lanes if at all possible. Like one of the things I say all the time is, if one of my students comes to me with a problem, they bring up something in terms of maybe like, they're having marriage difficulties and they want my opinion on their marriage difficulties. I don't give my opinion on marriage. Okay. I stay out of that stuff. I'm not an expert in that area. I'm not a marriage counselor. I teach martial arts. So I try to avoid getting myself in those situations, which I think are not good situations for someone like me and someone in my position to actually involve themselves in. So I try to stay and stick it to martial arts, maybe law enforcement, self-defense, the things I feel pretty confident about. I've raised 3 kids that I feel pretty confident about, but everything else I try to stay out of. I mean, even when I give advice on training, working out, diet and health, again, I try to keep it kind of loose, and I make suggestions, and I tell people you got to figure out what's best for you. I'm not saying you must do this or you should think this way, because I just think it's a mistake. So it's interesting that lately I've been seeing a lot of these posts, and with the current political situation with everything being a little bit like this. I don't think it does our profession any good to start spouting off our political opinions. Again, sensei get this idea that, you know, they're put on a pedestal by their students, so they think they can basically spout off about anything. And the first person I trained with was like that. He'd come down and go off on something, and we'd all be like, do martial arts. That's what we came down here to do. We didn't come down here to discuss the current political situation or that situation. We want to train in martial arts. And I had the black belt, some of the black belts that trained in that school, when they stopped coming down, I'd run into them and say, hey, how come you don't come down anymore? And, you know, they'd say something like, well, every time I go down there, we're not doing martial arts. He's talking about something else. So I just think it's something that as martial artists, we should keep an eye on. And look, I like to get in heated discussions with people about all kinds of subjects, right? I love to debate, but I also have come to understand that there's a time and place for it. Dojo, not for it. And maybe the public forum, especially when you're a person in the public eye, like I am now, you know, why do I want to get people mad at me if they don't agree with me politically or don't agree with me certain other things? So I just don't get involved with that in terms of my martial arts and the podcast. You know, class is over. Few people want to discuss current day, what's going on in the current world climate and stuff. Yeah, fine. Class is over. We're sitting around shooting a breeze. That's the thing. But I don't, as a rule anymore, I stay away from politics on social media. All right. Now, if you want to talk martial arts politics, we can talk martial arts politics. So, but again, right, we have 26 people watching. So do we have any questions from you guys? Is there a question on anything you'd like me to answer, a subject you'd like me to go into? Just type it out. I'll be able to see it, and I can go from there. I think I'll be able to see it. I see a bunch of them on the right-hand side, but everyone's just telling me they can hear me, or they're saying congratulations on the 100th episode. So no questions. There's 24 of you watching. Nobody has a question. Nobody has a juicy question they want to know. No, you can ask me anything. Anything you want to ask, you could ask. So I found out Master Chen Zhanghua will be coming to the Arizona, my dojo out here, the second week in July. So the weekend after July 4th, he'll be out here for a workshop. So anybody that's interested in that, you can reach out to me and let me know. So that's going to be coming up and happening. You know, my recent trip to Okinawa again, really enjoyed it. It was great. A lot of great experiences there. Oh, here we go. Oh, what am I currently reading? Okay. So that is an interesting question that, so since I moved out here, especially, I have a tendency to read around 5 books at the same time. So I'm in the process of reading Aikido, The Art of Transformation, The Life and Teachings of Robert Nadeau, that Bob Noha is a contributor to. He was nice enough to send me that book, so I'm working my way through it. Interesting book. Nadeau Sensei is a very interesting individual, very impressive resume in terms of martial arts and Aikido especially. Mario McKenna was nice enough to send me his 3 Kenwa Mabuni books. So I just recently finished reading those 3. I'm still working my way through the dated version of Patrick McCarthy's Motobu Choki book. All right. And I'm also reading some novels. I'm reading the latest Orphan X novel, and I'm also reading a fantasy series that's, you know, it's 6 books over 2,000 pages. I'm, you know, 2 2/3 way through it. I was down in Tombstone, Arizona last weekend with my wife on a little vacation, and I'm reading a history of the Arizona Rangers. So as you can see, my reading is kind of all over the place. I'm usually always reading something related to martial arts. I mean, I subscribe to Andreas Quast's Patreon, Mario McKenna's Patreon, Motobu Naoki's Patreon. So I'm constantly reading their articles and stuff. So there's a lot of different things I read. I recently finished a different version of Bubishi, the Chinese version of Bubishi, I can't remember the name of the authors. I don't have it out here. It's still in my living room because I'm constantly picking it up and reading another section of it. So yeah, I read. I'm a voracious reader. I'm reading all the time. So that'll give you an idea of what I'm reading currently. Okay. Some things I read on Kindle. A lot of things I read the actual on the book. But yeah, I have a book out there in the pile waiting. So yeah, I'm reading all the time. I read all kinds of books. I try to not just read martial arts books. I try to read books that, again, I find interesting. Whether they be thrillers or historical fiction. I mean, again, I read a bunch of different things. So, and I'm hoping to start writing my first book this year. That's one of the goals. So I'll start getting something going with that. Okay, if I could develop a physical fitness curriculum for public schools, what would you stress? What would it take to incorporate a self-defense program as well? Is this feasible today? Well, I think it's difficult today, depending on where you are. So, out here in Arizona, things are a little bit different. It's a little bit more of the cowboy culture. So, the firearms culture. But again, New York City public schools used to teach self-defense. They actually used to teach stick fighting. You can actually Google it and look up it on YouTube. You'll see there's video film from the early 1900s of a public school teacher teaching a group of young boys stick fighting. So I think it's possible 100%. Oh, there's a commercial on? Okay. That's YouTube for you. So I guess I'm back. I hope I'm back. So I think it could be done. I think you could develop a physical fitness curriculum, but I think a lot of the schools, like I'll use the New York school system as an example, they're barely doing gym anymore. I mean, Floral Park, the high school my kids went to, I mean, my sons were super athletes, but I watched their gym classes. They let them just walk around the track. That's their idea of a gym class. And some kids are allowed to play different sports, the ones that want to. The ones that don't want to, they just walk around the track. No good. I mean, when I was in high school, gym was serious. We did different things. Once a month was 1 month was wrestling, another month was gymnastics, another month was weightlifting. And you had to accomplish skills and demonstrate skills in all these things in order to pass the class. Now that's unheard of. I mean, the lower level public schools personally do no gym whatsoever. I mean, it's a problem, especially for young boys, because young boys need to burn off that energy. And that's why I think we're seeing a lot of young boys not do well in school, because they're all amped up and can't burn off energy. I mean, listen, a lot of schools don't even do recess anymore. So I think it can be done. I think you could incorporate a self-defense curriculum. I think if you did, you'd see less violence in the schools. But again, people have funny ideas. It's like in New York, a lot of people think, well, if they gave people in New York the ability to carry handguns, that there will be more shootings in New York. And that's completely not true. I live in a state where almost everyone carries. The only ones that you have trouble with are the ones that are not allowed to carry a gun, okay, which are the criminals. So another question here is from Gorilla Gomez, which is one of my Taiji students, Ramona. She wants to know, she said one of her favorite podcasts is The Chinese Connection, where I talked about the link between karate and Chinese martial arts. She wants me to talk about principle-based training. So what I'll tell you on that is I see parallels. I see the same threads that go through all the martial arts I do. And, so what do I mean by that? Well, principles like the rod, balance, these exist in every martial art. And if they're not in that martial art, it's a problem. So the universal principles, so if they're universal, you should see them everywhere. I see them everywhere. Okay. But again, the issue is what are the principles? Well, you have to have someone that teaches you the principles. So in my case, I had Master Chen Zhanghua teach me the principles. Once he started teaching me the principles, and I also had another teacher, Bob Tayani, was very adamant in teaching the principles. But Chen Zhanghua could do all of them physically with his body. And that was the thing that struck me. All right. So again, those principles, you have to learn them. That's why I putting out that video series of all those different principles. And there's more. Okay. Yeah, there's an overlap. I see them in Katori Shinto-ryu. I see it in feeding crane. I see it in Sosuishi-Ryu Jiu-Jitsu. I constantly get asked, people say to me, oh, that's like this in Taiji. And I'm like, yeah, it's the same thing. So principles are vitally important. My issue is people that teach the principles but don't follow them. So they're talking about them, but they're not doing them. Like if you're talking about the rod and everything you do, you're leaning over. Okay, well, where's your rod? So again, these are things that I think people have to work on, but I totally teach from principle based. And like Master Chen Zhanghua once said to me, if you see me doing something that violates a principle, don't do that. Maybe I'm having a bad day, right? Or maybe I'm just doing it wrong. So if you know it's wrong, why would you do it wrong? I told you the principle. I told you how it should be done. That's what you want to do. All right. So I get a question here is, any chance I will do an interview with Shimabuku Kichido Sensei? So it's from Matt Blair. So Matt, I would love to do one with Kichiro Shimabuku Sensei. But here's what I'll tell you about Master Shimabuku and Christian Foyen, who's a Frenchman living on Okinawa, who trains with Master Shimabuku. We talked about this when I was in Okinawa. Getting Master Shimabuku Kichiro to talk about himself is like pulling teeth. He's just very reserved. Like I actually talked to him and interviewed him for over 3 hours when I was on Okinawa, but not on camera. I voice recorded it, so I do have the recording of me and him speaking and me asking him a lot of questions. And even then, it's very difficult getting answers out of him. Like, I was sitting there, it hit me, and I said to him, hey, Sensei, did you train with Taira Shinken Sensei too? And Shimabuku Sensei looked at me like I was crazy, and he said, of course I trained with Taira Shinken. I was in the dojo with my father when Taira Sensei used to come in. So, so again, I think I get a lot out of him when I'm there, but Christian is also writing a book on Isshin-Ryu in French. Hopefully it'll be in English too, because the more books we have on Isshin-Ryu, the better. And Christian said to me, he said, I have such a hard time, Michael, getting information out of Master Shimabuku. And I said, yeah, he's just a very reserved individual. He's not very interested in talking about himself. He loves Isshin-Ryu, but he's not talking about himself. So, yeah, it's tough. It's difficult. But, maybe the next time I go, again, like I said, it's very difficult. He's a very reserved person. He's not someone that's he doesn't brag. He doesn't like to talk about himself, and he's not the only, I've met several people like that. So, someone needs to write a definitive book on Tatsuo's Kumite. Mr. Fawcett made a good start. So what you want to understand with Tatsuo's Kumite is that's just surface. And what I mean by that is you need to understand those guys in Okinawa, they had a curriculum. They learned 8 to 10 kata. They learned Jiu Kumite, obviously Makiwara. And then they learned the Kumite, the two-man self-defense stuff. What's interesting with them is you had some knife defense, you had some ground defense, which you're not seeing done in Okinawa anymore, which I think is a huge problem. All right. I think most Isshin-Ryu schools, a lot of them aren't doing ground fighting. If you're only teaching Isshin-Ryu, and I think a lot of them might not be doing knife defense, which again, I think is a problem. If you're teaching self-defense, your curriculum should be vast. All right. Tatsuo's Kumite, I think, again, I've done some self-defense with Kichido Sensei, and it's not just those techniques. There is a lot of self-defense techniques. So I think those are a start, and I think he taught those and formulated that to give the Americans, okay, here's something, but now you should expand on this. And this is an important thing to understand. it's not just those self-defense techniques. So, those are just, again, a small part of the curriculum. The self-defense curriculum is vast. I mean, I just came back from New York. I was teaching some self-defense, and one of the things I taught, someone was with me 40 years, walked over and said, I never saw this technique before. It's the first time I've ever seen that technique. And again, I say, okay, right? So, because again, there's a lot of techniques. I mean, just think about all the attacks. And, you say to yourself, well, why do I need a lot of techniques? Why don't I just focus on a few and really get good at those? Well, that's great until you're in a situation where none of those few you've practiced are called for in this situation. And then the other issue is, if you're an instructor, okay, you can't just teach the techniques you like. So there are a lot of techniques I teach in my martial arts classes, whether it be Taiji, and I'm talking about partner work, self-defense techniques, Taiji, karate, feeding crane, jiu-jitsu, that I don't like for myself. I don't like them. I say to myself, I'd never use them. But I teach them because I'm teaching a wide array of people, right? And some of those people might need one of those techniques. And also some of those people might say, wow, I really like this technique. This technique works great for me. And of course, I'll be saying to myself, wow, I hate that technique. I really don't like it. I don't think I'd ever use it, right? But look, it works for that person, great. So if you're an instructor, you want the catalog to be vast. I just did the podcast on Shodan-itis, and it's gotten a lot of comments. And one of the comments today, made me feel kind of crappy about Ishin-Ryu. The person said they made Shodan. They quit after Shodan because they were told they'd be training in new things, right? And they made Shodan and they weren't being shown anything. And I can relate because I had the same experience. Oh, real training starts after you make black belt. Then I make black belt, and where's the real training? I'm not seeing the real training. There's nothing new being taught. There's no deeper things being explained. And, I said to myself, well, if these masters trained in these arts for all these years, how could it not be that they, were doing this all these years and that's it? Okay, that's it. And sadly, we have it going on in Okinawa now, where, again, because it's become so sport-oriented, a lot of the deeper things in karate are being lost. Self-defense, certain self-defense things. We're on a commercial. Hey, if we're on a commercial, let me know. Okay. Someone just type in quick. So, but yeah, I feel bad, when someone says they quit because they weren't learning anything else. All right. I think most of my black belts would agree that there's a lot to learn after black belt. I'm showing them a lot of different things, a lot of different concepts, different techniques. It's like the same idea of there's no advanced techniques in martial arts. That's the biggest bullshit statement I've ever heard. And it makes me laugh when senior teachers make that statement. There's no such thing as an advanced technique. No, there are 100% advanced techniques that are very, very, very difficult to master. However, once you get it, you're like, oh, that's not so bad. Wow. Now that I can do it, oh, okay, now I get it. Now I understand. Yeah, it took me a few months to figure that technique out and really be able to do it. But now that I have it, and then from there, that might springboard you through more advanced knowledge. Okay. But the idea that, the basics are the most important thing. Well, if the basics are the most important thing, why did they come after the kata? And, I do basics, but I don't do them a lot. And I don't do them every class. Okay. I do other types of drills, single person drills that people can work on. But I try to make my classes different. When people walk in, they don't know what's happening that night. All right. I don't want it to be the same class every night. I don't want it to be the same techniques every night. I want it when they're getting out of their car, I want them to be thinking, boy, what sense are they going to do tonight? What's he going to show tonight? So that's something I try to do. All right. So people should just keep that in mind, those of you guys that are instructors. All right. And if you don't know, if you don't know certain self-defense techniques, I mean, God, you've got YouTube, but, you can also attend workshops, attend seminars, find someone that knows self-defense techniques. You can do Zoom classes with them. But, again, I see even a lot of the Isshin-Ryu in New York when I was training, it was basically kumite, freestyle sparring, and kata, and the basics. And that was the Isshin-Ryu class. And I remember school in Brooklyn one time asked me to come down and teach self-defense because they weren't doing that much of that. They were mostly doing kumite and basics and kata. And I spent an hour or so teaching self-defense, and people were like, "Wow, okay," And same thing. I see people make a statement that, "Well, I don't teach knife defense." Okay, well then you're not a self-defense school. If you're not teaching gun disarms, you're not a self-defense school. If you're not teaching what to do when someone falls to the floor, you're not a self-defense school. Do you ever work on techniques from sitting in a chair against a wall, multiple opponents? I mean, self-defense, these are all subjects that need to be gone over. All right. And going back to Tatsuo's kumite, there's a few knife techniques, there's a few ground fighting techniques, but there's a lot of stuff, a lot of attacks that aren't there, that are very common attacks. Okay. So, again, we want to expand on that. And to give you an idea of how I know it was just something that should be expanded on, this was just a basic curriculum that he hoped if they trained in it, they'd discover a lot of other techniques. When I asked Kichiro Shimabuku sensei in 1991 about the Bobo kumite, the Bosai kumite, and Isshin-Ryu, I said, are they the ones that the Marines created? And he said, oh, those are fine. He said, those are fine. And he said, but you should change them then. Change them? Wait a second. We're allowed to change something? I thought we're not allowed to change anything. I thought this is like the 10 Commandments. It's in stone. We can't change anything. He says, yeah, try different techniques. Don't do the same techniques all the time. So change it up. And it's interesting. I also am a senior teacher of Matayoshi Kobudo. And in Matayoshi Kobudo, if you traveled and trained with at a few different Matayoshi Kobudo schools, you'll see that many of the dojo have different training drills, 2-person drills that they create themselves. I had a couple of my guys create a bow versus Bodor drill. And then when they finished it and they showed it to me, I made some adjustments and some suggestions. And that's the drill we use in the dojo. So again, I think we need to expand the curriculum. And again, I'll talk about Isshin-Ryu here as far as karate goes. The curriculum of Isshin-Ryu is vast. And the curriculum karate style should be vast. If it's not vast, there's a problem. So if you're training 5 years, 6 years, and you're like, boy, I'm stuck. I'm not doing anything. There's nothing new I'm learning. Okay, well, that's a problem. Because again, I've got people training with me 40 years. I got people training with me 30 years, 25 years. And I got people training with me 2 months. So, if what I was doing was boring, if there wasn't more for me to show them and correct them on and work with them, I don't think they'd be sticking around. So again, I think it's the Tatsuo Kumite is a start, but I think it's very basic. It was to get them something so they could come back to the States with something. You look at the Tatsuo video with Steve Armstrong where he's doing a lot of those techniques, and you see Tatsuo throws Steve Armstrong with a hip throw. He throws Steve Armstrong with a joint throw. He does joint locks on him. These are all part of karate. And, I've heard senior Isshin-Ryu teachers that train with the founder say, oh, the joint locks, they're not a big deal. They're something to practice, but they don't really work. Okay. The person that says they don't really work is because they can't do them well. I'm telling you, in my police career, most of the techniques I used were joint locks. And you put a joint lock on someone, especially a criminal, he expects you to punch him. He expects you to kick him. He expects you to hit him with a nightstick. He does not expect you to put his arm in a position where the pain is beyond description. And it's frightening as hell to the criminal. It crushes their fighting spirit instantly. Now, don't get me wrong. If they hire something, they may not feel it right away, or they may even take a broken arm and keep fighting. Criminals, that's the way they are. Their mentality is very different from ours. But again, have to teach a lot of techniques. Now, I'll give you an example of a technique that I thought I'd never use. And I would say this in class when I would teach. is the crescent kick in Kusanku before you go into the jump. It's the only time we do a crescent kick, wheel kick, whatever kick you want to call it, tornado kick in Chinese martial arts, right? It's the only time we do that kick in an Isshin-Ryu kata. And I always thought when I started at 15 and by 17, I was probably learning Kusanku. I was like, man, this kick is ridiculous. Like, when would I ever use this? And then I'm a cop facing the guy, and he's holding a bottle by the neck, and he's holding the bottle low, and he's threatening me with it. And I don't know what made me think to do it. I was in full uniform, but I brought my right leg up, and I swept it across just like we do in Kusanku before the jump, and I kicked the bottle right out of his hand. And he just stood there looking at me with an empty hand. And I moved in and handcuffed him. And then I remember saying to myself, boy, I can't believe I used that technique. I said so many times in class, I'll never use this technique. This kick is dumb. It just doesn't make any sense, right? Okay. And I used it. Okay, but wait, there's more. A couple of years later, I'm in the same exact situation. I got a guy threatening me with a bottle, holding it by the neck. It's low. Again, it's not high. I would never try to kick high. He's holding it low, threatening me with it. And I really remember thinking, well, first time, maybe it'll work good the second time. And I did the same exact kick, only this time I shattered the bottle into a million pieces. So I wish we had it like on a video because it would have looked very cool, right? But the bottle was shattered into a million pieces and the guy was left holding nothing. And once again, handcuffs and off to jail he went. So a technique that I swore I'd never use, I wound up using twice in actual combat. So again, the old saying, never say never, right? So I think it's a good idea to never say never because you don't know when you're going to actually use a technique that you may not think is something that you'll use, right? So again, 2 instances where a technique I never thought I'd use, I used it twice, okay? So just something to keep in mind. Okay, so Larry Brink's asking if Lu Changyi will be doing any seminars in the U.S. in the near future. Larry, I wish I knew the answer to that. I don't. It's difficult. He doesn't understand certain things the way he needs to do certain things in order to make his seminars successful. The problem is the fee structure is a bit of a problem, and it makes it very dangerous for someone to host them because you could lose money. And losing money is something for a lot of people that's not in the cards, I'll give you, for instance, when Master Chen Zhanghua first came out here for the first time to Arizona for the workshops, New York one's established. The New York one is the oldest seminars he's been coming to in the States. It's the longest running one. He's been coming to New York for over 25 years. Okay. We were supporting him in New York, bringing him in twice a year when no one had even heard of him. Okay. But out here, when he first came out, I didn't have a lot of students. I still don't have a lot of students. So when he first got here, I said to him, Shifu, I don't know how much I'm going to be able to pay you. And I was willing to pay money out of my own pocket. And he goes, and this is the type of person he is. He says, well, if no one comes, I'll just work with you for 3 days. Now, again, I'm a senior disciple, so there's a special relationship there. But of course, I wouldn't expect him to do it for nothing. His time is valuable. As it turned out, I had a handful of people, so it worked out okay. And then the last time we had 18 people, which was great. So slowly it's building, and we're going to have them out here again in early July. So hopefully we'll get a bunch of people to come out for that. But yeah, I don't know when Master Lu will be coming back. Thank you for Sensei 68 for congratulations on the 100th episode. Nathan, what kata are you having fun with currently? I'm working on the 5th feeding crane kata. Don't remember the name. It's a Chinese name. It's hard to pronounce. So I'm working on that. I'm actually obviously still working and practicing that nunchaku kata I created for Isshin-Ryu. So I'm still having fun with that. I've been practicing the Matayoshi Jo kata a little bit more and the Matayoshi Teko kata a little bit more. So I've been having some fun with that. Been working Happo-ren a lot, which I learned from McCarthy Sensei years ago, and also Neppai. I'm a very big fan of Neppai. And again, you know, it's not necessarily the same Neppai exactly the way McCarthy does it, or exactly the way you'll see other people do it. But I enjoy the version I do. I like it. So yeah, and you know, so I'm working constantly. I know so many kata that I'm constantly, what I'll do is, in terms of my own training, I may come out on a Sunday and say, okay, today's Kobudo day. And I literally get out all the Kobudo weapons and I just do all the Kobudo kata. So, you know, in Mariyoshi, that's 6 bow kata when you include Ufutan. I know 2 versions of Tokumini, the other 2 Isshin-Ryu bow kata. I know 1 Yamani-Ryu bow kata that I'm not very good at, but I practice it anyway. That McCarthy Sensei had taught me 100 years ago. So yeah, in terms of training, I'm working on kata. I may just pick a particular group of kata and work those for the day. But you know, in Isshin-Ryu, I'm working on a lot of the kata all the time. I have some students now that are up through Sanchin out here, so they're getting into that realm of learning. You know, they'll have almost all the hand kata within the next couple of years, along with some weapons kata. I do so many Zoom classes now every week. You know, the Zoom classes, I'm even teaching jujitsu kata via Zoom now to someone in London, in the UK, Brian Carpenter. So he's on the screen with a student, and I'm teaching them how to the 2-man jujitsu kata. So you know, I teach practical method, obviously the Taiji online, feeding crane I'm teaching online, Ishin-Ryu, Mariyoshi, Kobudo. You know, so I'm teaching a lot of different things via Zoom. You know. Pat D'Alessio's asking, when will Marilyn Fierro be interviewed? Fierro Sensei will be interviewed next Friday morning. So she'll be interviewed next Friday. I hope to have that one up next weekend. If not next weekend, it'll be the weekend after. But yeah, and we have a bunch of interviews coming up. I'm hoping to get Andre Tippett on. And I have James Hatch, who's a professor of Japanese history. I'm hoping to get him on. You know, a lot of different people. Catherine, I think it's Lokopoulos. I might be pronouncing her name wrong. So if I am, forgive me, Catherine. But a lot of different people I want to get on. And then there's going to be some people coming on again. Walt Young is going to come on and talk about the recent video that he received from the late Angel Lima Sensei. We want to talk about that because it's an important historical video. I want to bring some attention to it. And we're, you know, I'm going to have Yannick Schultz on again. He just got back from a tremendous trip to Okinawa in Japan, and he's going to talk about some research that he was doing while I was there. So that's hopefully going to be in the next couple of weeks. And yeah, I mean, I want the channel to be a resource for researchers, authors, serious instructors. You know, I'd love to get some real. Now, when I say real, I mean real. Okay. Instructors of other arts that I don't do, whether it be Shinyi, Bagua, those kinds of things. I'd love to sit down and talk to someone from Eskrima. I have someone I may reach out and talk to him, bring him on. He's someone in California. So I'm pretty sure he'd come on. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot. I'm planning a lot of things. And, you know, so Laura Batty, one of my senior students from New York, do I plan to do an open live podcast like this periodically? Well, that's up to you guys. So you guys should let me know if you think this is something worth doing. You know, I'd be happy to do it, field questions. Again, I'm always looking for suggestions for topics. Okay, so feel free to send me suggestions for topics. So another question I have here is, reviews analysis of some of your archive videos would be amazing. Okay, that's something I'll consider. All right. I am still accepting students for Zoom class. All right. So as long as I can fit it into my schedule, I mean, I'm a full-time martial artist, so I'm retired from everything. The classes I teach out here during the week, I teach a lot of Zoom classes. For instance, today's Sunday, tomorrow, Thursday, I have 2. Friday, 1 or 2. The weekends depends. I'm on the weekends. Today I had one on the weekend. Sometimes I don't have them on the weekend. So it depends. Some people do them monthly. Some people do them weekly. Some people do twice a week. A few people I do where it's 2 guys are on the screen with me. I haven't done any where it's a large group. That's something I have considered doing. If someone would like, if people think it would be worth it, I'd charge a small fee and do a Zoom class where a lot of people could come in and I'd cover a particular subject, whether it be maybe a particular kata and Isshin-Ryu, and people could ask questions, and this way I could teach via that. So if people are interested in that, let me know. I'll be happy to set something up like that. Here's another one from Ramona. You teach competitive martial arts, but you've been training for 46 years. Have you participated in any type of sports-oriented events in the past? What do you think is the future of sport? So yeah, I've won the Masters division in kata in the IWK World Championships a few times. Okay. But I jokingly like to say, I only started winning after people realized I had a closer relationship with Master Shimabuku. So, yeah, I don't compete anymore. At least I don't think I will. I don't see any reason to. I competed in a push hands competition in China when I was 50 years old because Master Chen asked me to do it. Did I enjoy it? Yeah, I enjoyed it because it was fun. I fought a very young guy and I was dying by the second round and I lost. But it was a great experience and I hadn't trained for it. So I didn't even know the rules. So literally I'm getting told, no, that's not allowed. No, that's not allowed because I didn't know any of the rules. Master Chen just threw me out there. But it was fun and I don't regret doing it. I've competed in a bunch of karate tournaments. I did sparring when I was a brown belt. I thought it was utterly ridiculous. Ridiculous. Never did it again. Once I became a police officer and was involved in a lot more actual real confrontations, life and death, hundreds of life and death situations, I can't get excited for karate sparring. I can't. I don't do freestyle sparring in my dojo. I do close in one-on-one, and then I do multiple opponent drills that I've developed. Some of them are on the channel. You can look them up. So as far as sport, if sport makes you happy, do it. It doesn't make me happy. I don't think karate is a sport. I think if you're only training for karate as a sport and you think the way you're fighting in Jiu Kumite is going to translate to actual combat, I think you might be in for a surprise. So especially the way everybody does modern sparring. I caught last end of the blood and guts era of karate sparring. We wore no equipment. Okay. And you had to have control. Did people get hit? Oh yeah. Did people get hurt? Yeah. So, but yeah, I don't have a problem with sport. It's just not for me. Sensei 68, I greatly appreciate when you share old Isshin-Ryu videos. I love seeing the similarities between Isshin-Ryu and Shorin-Ji-Ryu, Kudaka Hisataka family lineage. We both come from the Kion lineage. Yeah, it's interesting. I recently read, now I'm drawing a blank on the name. It'll hit me in a second. But, there's basically 3 main schools in Okinawa of Kion lineage karate. So the one lineage, Arcata, looks somewhat the same, but it looks a little different. And, I always wondered why. And there's a few things I've talked about on the channel, so I'm not going to bring it up again. But, even our Wansu looks a little different from those other lineages. And someone recently pointed out to me that there are some schools that do a show and a dai version of Wansu, and that the Wansu we're doing is probably a dai version. So that's why there's some extra moves in it. People love to say, oh, Tatsuo changed the kata. Tatsuo did this. Tatsuo changed that. Yeah, I don't buy that all the time. Our Seisan is virtually exact to, the other schools. The one school does a little bit weird things to me with the footwork and hip, but that's on them. If they think that's better, that's fine. One of the things I talk about all the time is that once it became more about money, it became Coke and Pepsi. So now your style has to differentiate from the other style. And you have to say, well, you see, they do it like that, and that's wrong. We do it like this. Where really karate is karate. And if you're going by principles, those principles are ironclad. And it's important that we stick with the principles. So I'm being asked if I have any recreational sports, tennis, golf, etc. So since I came out here, no. But when I was in New York, I was part of a bowling league. And I hope people find this story a little humorous. So I decided to get back into bowling after about 30 years. And I heard there was a bowling league that catered to police officers, mostly retirees. So I called the guy up and he says, come on down. So I show up. He says, well, what's your average? I said, I haven't bowled in 30 years. So I don't have an average. He goes, all right. He says, well, I'll help you out. I'll help you with your bowling. I said, okay. So I go there and he says, come back next week and I'll put you on a team. You bowl. I said, all right. And I'm looking at the scores. These guys are bowling, the scores. And I'm like, what the hell have I gotten myself into? And then I'm on a team and I'm bowling and then I'm every week, a different guy's bowling 300. And then I find out the guy that told me he'd help me, he was a professional bowler after he retired from the police department. And he's bowled like 69 300 games. And then I'm seeing all these guys and I'm the youngster there. I'm the youngster there. And I'm like, oh my God, I've got to. So I started practicing. I was going bowling like 2 or 3 times a week just to practice, to try to get better. So I was bowling, but I haven't bowled since I've gotten out here. I should probably get back into it because I found it very relaxing and made me not think about martial arts or anything else. I could just focus on bowling for a couple hours a week. So maybe that's something I should get back into. Alicia DeWitt. So a couple people. Do I have any in-person seminars planned this year? I just did one in New York. I'm always open to come and do a seminar. If someone's interested in hosting me for a seminar, you can give me a call or shoot me an email and we can talk about it. So right now I don't have anything else planned other than the Master Chen event where he's coming here to teach Tai Chi for 3 days. Another question I have here, how do you stress test your or your students' techniques? In the beginning, when doing joint locks, I don't allow resistance because it's a little dangerous. As the students become more proficient, the more senior students will start to be able to resist a little bit to make sure the person has the technique on, specifically with joint locking. I don't allow contact in the dojo. What I mean by that, I don't allow students to hit each other. I expect punches and kicks to be thrown with full power, but people to have control, that they could hit the person if they wanted to, but they don't because they have ability. All right. When the attacks come, again, a beginner, I'm not attacking a beginner the way I'm attacking someone that's been with me for 3 or 4 years. So it's a steady turning up the heat. I want to build the student's confidence. So in the beginning, the pressure testing is not as severe. As they go up in ability, I start coming in harder and harder. They have to, at some point, be able to deal with a full power punch coming at their head. They have to be able to deal with techniques that are being done hard. They have to be able to get out of a bear hug that the person is not letting them get out of. They have to be able to get out of a rear choke that the person's not letting them get out of. So again, in the beginning, it's not that hard because I want the person to develop the skill. But as their skill goes up, then we start going harder and harder and harder. All right. Again, within a certain parameter. The idea that you can recreate actual life and death combat in the dojo is ridiculous. So if you tell me, well, we do full contact, which is the closest thing, okay, I'm telling you bullshit. All right. So unless you're dealing in a real situation where you're on, like in my case, a 4-foot wide subway platform at 3 o'clock in the morning, fighting 2 guys at the same time, you turn a stair corner and the punch is coming at your head. You have to run 6 blocks, chase a guy wearing 30 pounds of equipment, and now you're engaged in a life and death struggle to fight this guy, get him in control, and handcuff him. So again, you cannot recreate those things in the dojo. So what you try to do is you try to make it as realistic as possible, but you don't want people getting hurt. If you get hurt, you're gonna have a closed dojo very quickly. All right. I can tell you now, I've had many of my students that were not law enforcement, that were just civilians. They were attacked. They defended themselves, came out on top. As a matter of fact, I can't think of a time when my student didn't come out on top. I can't ever know one. And I get messages. I got one a couple of months ago from a young lady I used to train years and years ago. She hasn't trained with me in years, just thanking me for everything I taught her, that the stuff I taught her had not only saved her physically, but that the morals and the work ethic that we instill in the dojo, she carried through the rest of her life. And as an instructor, I mean, it made me feel great. I mean, I was on cloud nine the whole day after reading that. So, okay. Question on Tatsuo Sensei. I believe he may have been more a pragmatic traditionalist than a maverick. I think he's a little bit of both. I think Tatsuo is an interesting guy, and I don't think he gets enough credit. I work with a sixth Dan that trains here with me that comes from a different Isshin-Ryu lineage. And a few weeks ago, he wanted to go over Sun Tzu. And I said, okay, I want you to add up all the elbow strikes. And I said, I want you to add up all the open hand techniques in Sun Tzu. And then when he did it, he said to me, holy crap, there's a lot of open hand techniques in Sun Tzu. So what's the thing we always hear about Okinawan karate? Oh, they close the fist. So they went from open hand techniques, they closed the fist. And we have this ridiculous idea that the Chinese are always striking with the fingertips. Like, oh, that's why they do open hand. No. A lot of the open hand stuff is seizing. They seize, then they hit. Okay. So it's not that they're puncturing, the rib cages with their fingertips that are, conditioned to do that. I think Tatsuo is a little bit of both. I think he refused to do those school children kata they created for karate gymnastics in the early part of the 20th century, which I think says something about him right there. I think when you look at his kata that he created, you're seeing a lot of open hand techniques. You also look at the Nahanshi we do. Normal Nahanshi Shodan, the only open hand technique is this block where we do the elbow. The punch that comes across is a punch, not an open hand, but Tatsuo made that an open hand technique. Then they normally do this where both fists are closed, but he did the open hand block. So I think Tatsuo was interested in the Chinese origins of Okinawan karate. So I think he's a little bit of both. Also, I think in bringing Kobudo into the system, he was really creating a uniquely Okinawan art, where it was, if you look at Isshin-Ryu, we have as many Kobudo kata as we do empty hand kata. But I'm going to have guys tell me, well, the Kobudo is not that important. Well, the Kobudo is just something extra you do, but it's not as important as the empty hand. Again, we're wrong. Okay. The Kobudo is very important. The problem is that most Isshin-Ryu people aren't very good at it. And Tatsuo would tell his first generation guys that, listen, I'm not a Kobudo master. This is what Tatsuo would say. And he'd say, if you really want to get good at Kobudo, you should train with a Kobudo master. So people like Advincula trained with, Ihakutaro, very famous Kobudo sensei, still alive in Okinawa. John Bartasevich sensei trained with Fumio Demura in California. I'm not first generation, right? But I trained with Gaki Yoshiaki along with other Kobudo. And I feel that experience of training with a Kobudo master had a dramatic effect on my Isshin-Ryu Kobudo for the good. So I think, I think you're right on both counts. I think he's a pragmatic traditionalist and he's a maverick because he wouldn't give in to things. And I think, I think there's a bit of a bias to this day on Okinawa about Isshin-Ryu. Part of it because Tatsuo got the contract to teach the Marines, was making a lot of money. And the more established styles were probably like, why is this guy? This is a new style. Why does he get this contract? Why is he making all this money? Why aren't we should be making this money? And I think people have a long memory. And I think there's still a bit of that bias there. And then also in the beginning, the early days of Isshin-Ryu, Isshin-Ryu was winning the fighting tournaments on Okinawa. They were beating everybody. So again, I think there's I think some of the other styles have a negative bias towards Isshin-Ryu, and that's okay. I mean, I could care less what they think. And I'll put the Isshin-Ryu body mechanics against any other style of karate, because I see some styles of karate doing things biomechanically that are just not correct, and that's fine. Do whatever you want. But I think Tatsuo was a genius. And I think, you know, I think we're lucky that he created the art we love to do. Okay, so here's, I'm probably not pronouncing this right, Himaj. Love your content, Sensei, particularly the tactical content on knife defenses and thoughts on interviewing people with expertise in police and our military combatives training systems. So I do have a few guys. I did interview Stu, who you'll find him on my channel. He's a highly decorated cop in New York City. He told a lot of cool stories about the things he was involved in. You know, so there's that. And there's some other people I plan on interviewing in the future. You know, I interviewed Hunter Chip Armstrong. So, you know, he talks about combatives. That's his lifelong study. That's his passion. So that's a good interview. If you haven't seen that one, you might want to go back and watch that one. You know, my idea with defenses, knife defense, gun defense, baseball bat, club, chain, chair, whatever weapon the guy has, you have to have some type of techniques that you can use. I posted a video yesterday on my Facebook feed. If you scroll down on my Facebook feed, you'll see it, of a guy snatching a knife out of a guy's hand at an airport. The guy had taken the guy hostage, and as the guy's talking, he's distracted. He reaches over and snatches the knife out of the guy's hand. And if you see me teach knife defense, you know I talk about the importance of distracting the attacker. You know, he's holding the knife on you, or he's threatening you with the knife. If you talk to him, he's going to tell you, shut up. You still talk to him. His brain's listening to you. You're distracting the guy, and you make you move. So the problem I see with a lot of martial arts instructors is they think the defense against the knife, the defense against the gun, against the weapon is all about a superior technique. It's not about a superior technique. It's about a superior tactics and technique. And the tactics are like, well, how do I put myself in the position to get this knife out of his hand? You know, so for instance, the one technique I teach where the person's thrusting a knife in the throat. And, you know, I get all the time people say, who puts a knife in your throat? Okay, duh. I've taken 1 million police reports where people held a knife to the person's throat, held it here. Okay. Yeah, of course. They put the weapon on you, makes them feel powerful. They want you to be nervous and scared. So you give them the property or whatever else they want, you know? So yeah, that's a good idea. I'll look into, there's a guy in Canada I'm going to try to talk to about possibly interviewing him. Bill Hayes has consented to come on. So, you know, again, I'm trying to interview as many people as I can, talk to as many people as I can. And again, it's selfish reasons. I enjoy talking to these people. So, you know, and that's what I really, really enjoy. I enjoy talking to them and hearing what they have to say, you know, and, you know, it's a give and take, but I really enjoy listening to them. Like next week, Marilyn Fierro, she'll be the first woman I'm interviewing for the channel. That's great. You know, I'd like to interview more martial artists, you know, but just to mention to you guys, like one of the things the guys in Okinawa told me, and a lot of the senior martial artists reach out for me and say, they like that the fact that the channel is more serious. You know, you're not going to see karate versus kung fu on this channel. You're not going to see I fought a ninja for a day on this channel. You know, it's just not what I'm interested in. And therefore, I'm never going to make a lot of money from this channel. Because again, it's a narrow group of people, and you know it's growing, but it grows slow. It's not, you know, never, you know, growing massively. You know, we're closing in on now 16,000. Maybe by the end of this, I'll have 16,600 subscribers, which is, you know, again, if you told me I would have had that much, I would have told you you're crazy, right? But so yeah, so that's one of the things. Okay, any thoughts for the future of Isshin-Ryu and where it may go? Well, I can tell you one thing: Isshin-Ryu is not going anywhere. I mean, there's over 600 dojo. Isshin-Ryu's everywhere in the world. Everywhere. Okay? Everywhere. It's everywhere. I get asked the subject on Okinawa. There's not a lot of Isshin-Ryu in Okinawa. And, you know, I've had people say to me, especially after I this stuff, right? Well, what are you going to do about the Okinawa situation? Well, I'm not going to do anything about the Okinawa situation. I mean, yeah, I'll leave my wife and grandkids and go to Okinawa and teach. If somebody else wants to do that, go right ahead. You know, Master Shimabuku had told me he planned on reopening the school because the school was closed for a while because of his condition with his leg. But, you know, he planned on reopening it. I don't know if it's open yet. But yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. But Isshin-Ryu, it's not going anywhere. I mean, there's Isshin-Ryu dojo everywhere. Now, the problem is I want to see the quality of Isshin-Ryu go up. That's what I want to see. You know, like someone just wrote, Nathan just wrote, he really liked the Nick Adler, interview. And I liked it too. You know, I thought it was a fun interview. He told some stories. It was great. But, you know, I'll tell you one thing Sensei Adler once said. He was at a big Ishin-Ryu event and a bunch of senior dons came up to him and said, you know, we're talking about forming a promotion board. And Sensei Adler's response was, how about a standards board? And when he told me that story, I laughed. I said, that was a good comeback, right? You know, we're always worried about promotion. Promotion is the easiest thing to get in the world, okay? You know, are you good? Like if I'm 10th dan and you look at my karate and you're thinking, this guy sucks. How did he get 10th dan? Okay, we have a problem. You know, if you're looking at my karate and I'm Godan and I'm supposed to be a physical master of the art and you're like, wow, this guy's not that impressive. Okay, we got a problem. So again, you know, I think it's incumbent upon us to work on a skill set. And if you feel, you know, the way you're being taught is not elevating your skill set, well, it's incumbent on you to find someone that can elevate your skill set. Okay. That's incredibly important. You know, I'll tell you what I get asked every single first seminar I've ever done. Every single one. I normally the first day do it with the owner of the school and whatever black belts the owner wants to invite. And we work for an hour or two and we take a break. And the owner of the school comes up to me and says, no one in Isshin-Ryu has ever showed me things like this before. Why aren't they showing me this stuff? And my response is always the same. They can't show you what they don't know. And recently I had a husband and wife from Detroit, the Ingermans, come to my seminar in New York. And they'd never trained with me in person. And they said they never saw an approach to Isshin-Ryu like this. Like they loved it. They told me they loved it. They said the 10-hour drive home, all they talked about was a seminar, which made me feel happy. I mean, it means that they liked what I taught, which is good. So, you know, that's my goal. My goal is I want to help people in Isshin-Ryu elevate their skill. I want to help them elevate their skill. I get asked all the time about to get recognized as Shodan in Isshin-Ryu. And, you know, Shodan's a nothing rank. I mean, it's nothing in the scheme of things. But my real goal is to help people elevate their skill. And not just in Isshin-Ryu. I want to help them elevate it in Chen Taiji practical method. You know, the jiu-jitsu style I teach is virtually extinct. It's this close to dying out. You know, I want to help people with Mariyoshi Kobudo. You know, I know the whole Mariyoshi Kobudo system. I mean, I'll give you, for instance, you know, the Okinawa Kobudo Renmei, the people running that, you know, they don't teach certain of the Mariyoshi kata. And I heard one of their senior teachers say, well, why don't you do the gua, which is the farmer's hoe kata? Oh, that's not a warrior's weapon. That's a farmer's weapon. Okay. The reason you don't teach the gua is because you don't know it. So you don't know it. That's why you can't teach it. All right. So I was lucky. The teacher I had learned the whole system. He taught me all the kata. So I was lucky in that regard. I work at them. I keep myself in pretty good physical condition. So I'm able to still do things, I think, at a pretty high level. You know, but yeah, you know, the future of Isshin-Ryu, I think it's not going anywhere. I think the future of Isshin-Ryu will. And, you know, one of the reasons I want to preserve all this stuff on video is that this way, long after I'm gone, there's still, people can still see these people and they can still see things. And maybe, you know, again, you know, when I now do, like this coming Saturday, I'm going to do some more bunkai stuff, right? And it'll get up and I'll get back to filming new stuff this week. But, you know, when I demonstrate bunkai for you guys, I'm just kind of giving you ideas. Like, I want you to play around. I want you to figure things out on your own. I want you to come up with other bunkai. And, you know, some of your bunkai won't be any good, but that's okay, right? And then you'll weed those out and you'll come to ones that work really good for you. And I encourage my students to create bunkai, you know, after black belt. And, you know, in the New York school, guys would come up to me all the time and say, hey, you know, the other night you weren't here and we were working on this. We wanted to show it to you. We wanted to see what you think. And, you know, they might show me 3 applications for a particular move in a kata. And, you know, 2 might be great. And I'll say those are really good. And the third one, I'll go, nah, that one's okay. You going to be difficult to make that work. And then maybe there's a fourth one and I go, well, that one's good, but let me tweak this a little bit. And then I tweak it and they go, oh, okay. Oh yeah, that works a lot better. So again, that's one of the things I try to do too, is I'm hoping through what I'm trying to teach, through the videos, through Zoom, through seminars, I'm hoping that the level of all these different arts will go up. Because I see a lot, and I see a lot of mediocre. And, again, mediocre is okay, but I want people to be high level. That's what I really want. So are there any other questions? I've been talking for an hour. So let me have a drink of water. So I got to say, we have more people watching than I thought we would. So we have right now 36 people watching. So if anybody has any questions on Mariyoshi Kobudo or practical method or the style of jiu-jitsu I do or any of that, what happens in combat, what's it like being in, actual life and death combat, anything particular you're interested in, I'm sitting here, feel free to ask. I'll be happy to answer. Okay, maybe everybody's getting tired, which I totally get and understand. I get tired too. So, I appreciate all the comments saying how much you enjoyed the podcast and how much, you enjoy the channel. All right. So here's a question from Tim Peretti, and I guess we'll make this the last question and I'll sign off because it's been going for a while. Why is Sanshin taught last and at what age? So, we got a couple of questions, so I'll answer them both. Sanshin was not always taught last. Tatsuo Sensei sometimes taught Sanshin first, but he usually taught it. He taught it as the sixth kata. So Sanshin in general wasn't taught last, and then Goju-Ryu teaches it first. In Okinawa, the age is usually around 15 or 16. They don't start teaching Sanshin to 15 or 16. They have a belief that teaching it to little kids may not be such a good idea. I don't know. If you're doing it with a crazy heavy tension, probably true. It's probably not a good idea. So yeah. So Sanshin and Isshin-Ryu, I teach it as the sixth kata. So Seisan, Seiuchin, Nahanchi, Wansu, Shinto, Sanshin. And then I teach two weapons kata, Kian no Sain, Tokomi no Kun, and then Kusanku and Sunsu. And those are what you need for black belt. So Master Shimabuku says 8 kata minimum for Shodan, but he prefers 10. So I go with the 10. So as I was in between teachers, did you ever think of doing another style of karate? No. I lucked out. I mean, I walked in, I did a Isshin-Ryu was taught the YMCA that I was a member of. That's why I started training. I didn't know what Isshin-Ryu was. Okay. So I never thought about doing another style of karate. I've had friends that did other styles. I've compared notes with guys from other styles. Some of my sensei in Okinawa in Kobudo, Yogi Sensei is a senior dan in Uichi-Ryu. So he taught me the 3 original Uichi-Ryu kata. So yeah, but I don't really practice them. Okay. I couldn't do them right now if my life depended on them, but I did learn them at one point because I wanted to experience it. So yeah, so I never thought about doing another style of karate because when I left my first instructor, I went right to Okinawa, right to Master Shimabuku, who I'd met in New York on more than one occasion. He did a seminar at my first dojo that I had in New York City. All right. So here's Sensei 68. The interview with Bob Noah was very informative, even more so since I started Aikido over a year ago. Okay, good. I'm glad you enjoyed it. That's what I mean. I'm hoping to get some sensei on from other martial arts. I'd love to get some sensei on, but I again, and I don't want people to take this the wrong way. I'm not looking for made up styles. All right. If you're training seriously in an art that has a lineage, yeah, I'd like to have you on. If you're, an offshoot, I'm not sure at this point. But yeah, so I want to have people on from other styles. I want to talk about a lot of different things. We should all realize there's enough people in this world that we can all have students. no matter whether you're doing all these different styles. So you can, there's plenty of students for everybody. Okay, so Larry Brink, considering all of your 46 years of training and real-world martial arts experience, have you ever considered creating a kata like Master Shimabuku did that combined or summarized all your principles? Have I ever considered it? Yes. Have I done it? No. And last year, my Taiji master, Chen Zhanghua, asked me to create a form that would combine Taiji and karate, which I've only been thinking about, but I haven't started putting together yet because I think it's a very difficult undertaking. I think there's a real connection between Taiji, Shin-ryu, especially in Okinawan karate, and also White Crane. I think those arts all right, are in Okinawan karate. You've heard me talk about it, where I believe if you're looking for our forms in China, you won't find them except for Sanshin. Okay, maybe a variation of Seisan, but the techniques in our kata you'll find all over Chinese martial arts. Okay, so again, I think that's the connection. The connection is that these Okinawans were learning fighting techniques from various Chinese masters. When they got back, they created their own forms to preserve those techniques. Remember, martial arts was all two-man practice. What do you need a single person form for? You're working life and death. Okay, throw a punch at me. Okay, throw a punch harder. All right, it's you and a guy working on it. Same with weapons. Weapons was all two-man practice. All the weapons forms are modern. If you think they're ancient, you're living in a fantasy world. They're not. Everything was come at me with that sword. Guy swings at the sword. So you look at all the Japanese koru. It's all partner work. All partner work. Okay. So again, have I considered it? Yes. Might I do it eventually? Maybe. I don't know. So I can tell you now, I'm not starting it tomorrow. I got to try to create this Taiji karate hybrid form that Master Chen wants me to do. So that'll be next on my agenda as far as creating things. I have no interest in creating my own style. That's another question I get asked on occasion. Some people have said to me, how do you keep them all separate? Well, because when I put on a Kobudo gi, I'm a Kobudo guy. When I put on a karate gi, I'm a karate guy. Now, are there principles that go through everything? Absolutely. But I put on that hat. That's what I'm teaching. That's what I'm doing. I may use another art as an example for something, but I'm teaching those arts. So is there some crossover? Of course there is. We all have two arms and two legs. How can you not have crossover? So, all right, folks, I think I'm going to wrap this up. I appreciate all of you watching and listening to me talk for all these podcasts, 100 now. And I hope you'll stick around, and I hope I get better at doing this. And like I said, next weekend I'll interview Marilyn Fierro, and we'll go on from there. And there'll be new videos popping up for the members. If you're not a member of the channel, you can join. It's $2.99 a month. All right. And there's a lot of videos there where I go into detail on the Isshin-Ryu kata, on the Mariyoshi kata, on a lot of different things. All right. So, people seem to like this. If you like this, again, drop me a line, and maybe we'll do it again, in a couple of months. Maybe we'll do it a live one every couple of months. All right. So I appreciate all of you again. I can't tell you how much I appreciate all of you. I thank you all for all the support, and I'll see you soon in the future. Thanks. Take care.